So, box office top 10 at 36, Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. Pete in London.
Okay, yes.
Dear Winnie and indeed Pooh.
Just say before we go any further, great sound design.
STL, although moving towards my MTL entrance exam. A note on the Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey monstrosity.
Yes.
I have actually been aware of this film's existence for months and been wondering if and when it would appear on the show. The reason is that I have two kids aged 2 and 4 who a few months ago got their first Winnie the Pooh book out from our local library. They loved it, became entranced with the characters, and as is the case these days, I thought I might show them some of the classic cartoons on a fruit-based device via a popular video streaming website. Now, I'm worldly wise enough to not allow my dear children unfettered access to YouTube.
Good.
But I didn't anticipate any reason to ensure their eyes were averted when searching for Winnie the Pooh. Alas, the first 3 videos were trailers for this garbage, and while I didn't click on any of them, both children got to see a still of a nightmare vision of their new favourite character, looming ominously behind a scantily clad woman in a hot tub, which was upsetting and surprising for them to say the least, and triggered a series of difficult "who is scary Winnie the Pooh and what's he doing" type questions. As a result, I have had a chip on my shoulder about this film for months, especially as I watched the trailer after the kids were safely tucked away in bed and thought it looked utterly gratuitous, sexualised in the worst possible way and cheaply made, brackets, cracking sound design.
Cracking sound design notwithstanding.
Thoroughly depressed to hear that they're going to be doing the same to other loved children's characters. I don't doubt that there are already children who have watched this trailer by accident and been deeply upset by it. Could they perhaps think again? Interesting, Pete, but they won't. No. Loving the show. Keep up the good work. Up with Blue-Head Feminist. Down with the cheap, disturbing male gaze horror films of all varieties.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the worst things about Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, which is just rubbish with the exception of the opening 5 minutes, which I thought were quite funny, is that it's just, we didn't die in the slasher wars so that people could make films again in which somebody in a hot tub is terrorised by a bloke with a knife. It's like, no, it's so last century, and it's also so badly done. Weirdly enough, when there was the first thing about people being annoyed that Winnie the Pooh was being taken and turned into a horror character. I mean, as somebody who's very interested in fairy tales, I did my PhD on horror fiction, and a lot of it was about fairy tales. The kind of dark side of fairy tales has always appealed to me. But the thing with Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey is that that's an idea that they have for precisely 3.5 minutes at the beginning of the movie. And then it is just people in hot tubs being chased by a bloke with a Winnie the Pooh head on, which isn't even a Winnie the Pooh head, obviously, and a knife. And it's
You can't really be chased in a hot tub, though, can you? You can go round and round.
Yes,
a bit.
Exactly.
Yeah. And the other way. Otherwise, you go dizzy.
Yeah, it's it's just shoddy and poor, okay. and yeah, thank you. I hadn't thought about that, but I presume that the YouTube trailers may be age restricted, but you're right, that doesn't stop you seeing the thumbnail. So yeah.
Pete, thank you. Number 10 in the UK is Epic Tales.
Oh, we're not doing Meet Me in the Bathroom, which is 16. Just very briefly to say that's the documentary about the New York punk scene 2001 onwards, which I thought was niche.
Number 10 is Epic Tales.
Which is on the way out, but has done much better than I thought it was going to.
Number 9 is To Duty Main Macabre.
Yes, so I haven't seen this. This wasn't press screened. This is a comedy romance. If anybody has seen it, please let us know. I'd like to hear about it.
Number 8 in the UK, 6 in America, Champions.
Which I enjoyed. The thing about the Farrelly brothers, I mean, this is Bobby Farrelly as opposed to the Farrelly brothers. Peter Farrelly, directed the Best Picture winner, weirdly, Green Book. That throughout their career, they have always had this thing about diverse casting, and it is something that they take very, very seriously. And the key thing in Champions is that all the jokes are about the fact that Woody Harrelson's character is an idiot. And that is a very Farrelly way of doing it. And I thought it was, I really enjoyed it. And I came out of the screening and I spoke to a couple of other critics. Did we have any right to expect that was going to be as good as it was? I mean, yes, it has flaws, but it's a good, uplifting sports movie with proper, diverse casting and some real rising stars in the cast, and I liked it very much.
Darren Leithley in Dublin. I saw Champions on Saturday night. While the story beats, selfish man learns the error of his ways and improves thanks to interacting with a bunch of people with whom he'd never ordinarily meet. Are well worn. Interesting punctuation in this sentence. We're still in the first sentence.
Yeah, though the story beats, not as in beats, as in defeats, but the story beats as in the points, yes.
We're still on the
Sorry, yes, the first subclause.
It's done in such an engaging way, without approaching mushy sentiment, full stop. There's plenty of cliches. Each of the friends is of a character type familiar to any movie gang. There are critical speeches delivered. The progress of Marcus's character has stages that can be ticked off, yet the characters are winningly played to enjoy the film. In the canon of Woody Harrelson basketball films, White Man Can't Jump still holds the top spot, but Champions is a pleasant way to spend a couple of hours.
I thought it was interesting that White Men Can't Jump was the thing that made Woody Harrelson a movie star, and that he was coming, back to it with this. I still remember seeing that because of course he was a TV star and then movie star. So anyway, I like this film.
Number 7 is What's Love Got to Do with It?
Not that one. Kind of sweet, good-hearted, heart in the right place. If you're talking about a Mother's Day movie, that might be a better call.
Well, I think Cocaine Bear would be better. Number 6 here, number 5 in America. So there you go.
Hey, Mum.
We're going to go and see that film.
You've got a choice.
Yeah.
80 for Brady, What's Love Got to Do with It, or Cocaine Bear?
Number 5 here, 4 in America, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. Number 4 here, number 9 in the States, Puss in Boots, The Last Wish, still in there.
Yeah, I'm still doing well.
Number 3 here, number 3 in the States.
Not press screened, 65.
So this is 65.
65.
So, now, always, when a film has not been press screened, it's either been because
it's rubbish.
It's either because it's rubbish or it's foreign language, and sometimes they're not press screened.
Yeah, and quite often, just to be clear about this, Bollywood releases, Indian releases are quite often not press screened because they don't get the prints like anything before 16 hours before the film opens.
But this
is to do with piracy.
Is definitely in English, and is therefore I can imagine.
Well, I haven't seen it, so I cannot possibly pass judgment. What I can tell you is that the fact that it wasn't press screened and it was basically shoved out. I mean, it's like suddenly it was there. Suggests that they didn't have a lot of faith in it. Gone in at number 3. Any emails?
Yes. Calvin Silvera. Hi, sexy nuts, and something else. Genuinely surprised at some of the bad reviews of this film.
Okay.
It's exactly the kind of movie that the poster sells it for, and it's the better for it. Like Plane, it's a B movie about getting from A to B, but this time, instead of rebels, we have to deal with dinosaurs. It had the right amount of dinosaurs, maybe jumping places, and there wasn't a moment in the film that didn't feel genuine.
Well, we are.
Adam Driver and Ariana Greenblatt were great. They had that perfect mix of being engaging, funny, and charming. Most importantly, I believed in their characters, and the genuine emotional moments worked for me. Yes, it's ridiculous in parts, but it's a movie. A genre one at that. It's no more ridiculous than Sandra Bullock bouncing off satellites in space. Especially when you put this up against the terrible Jurassic World film from last year. This satisfied my craving for dinosaurs on screen perfectly. Says Calvin.
So my question would be, why withhold it from the press? Yes. And of course, from the studio's point of view, their answer might have been, well, look, the press wouldn't have increased the box office, and they might have put people off. But it's like it was not press screened.
Number 2 here, number 2 in the States is Creed 3. Email here from Matt in South Wales. Embarrassingly, I am about 3 weeks behind on the pod, so at the point of writing, I don't know what Mark thinks of Creed 3. But I thought I would throw my gloves into the ring.
Yes, please.
On Sunday, the boy child, George, aged 13, and I went to see Creed 3. I bet George is thrilled with that. We have semi-binged on, bonded over, and had a mutual love-in with all 8 previous Rocky franchise films over the past 6 months to get us to the point where we timed it perfectly for the release of the latest chapter. We both thought it was fantastic. We were nervous at the news that Rocky wouldn't appear in this installment, as both of us simply love that guy and felt that he was the emotional heart of the movies. But not only was he not missed, actually his absence freed up the film to be a bit different. Michael B. Jordan is a brilliant screen fighter. As much as I genuinely love Rocky's style of walking, head down into endless punches, shaking his head slightly after each blow, then stumbling forward again, and ultimately winning because he has a bigger heart. Under Michael B. Jordan's direction, we saw Creed as a genuinely
talented
That's
such a great description of Sylvester Stallone's boxing style.
Yes, Michael B. Jordan's direction, we saw Creed as a genuinely talented sportsman fighting with accuracy, precision, science, and incredible speed. Me and George decided that the best way to make peace with the idea that Rocky is absent is to look at the character growth Adonis has undergone since Creed 2. He just doesn't need Rocky anymore, meaning that Rocky is most likely spending his dotage building bridges with his son and grandson, and that makes us even happier.
Which is what happened at the end of 2, isn't it?
Genuine win for everyone. Up with family bonding cinema sessions, Matt in South Wales.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we're all pretty much on the same page. It's a solid instalment. I didn't miss Rocky Sylvester Stallone. I know there's been a lot of stuff in the press about Stallone being unhappy that he's not in it, and that's fine. Sometimes you have to take away the behind the scenes stuff, but I thought it was pretty solid. And certainly when it comes to the fight sequences, they are well directed. And I'll say this again: I think that decision in the middle of the title fight to take the audience away and to just give you this kind of almost apocalyptic vision of it. There's nothing except for the boxing ring. I think that works really well.
And number one here, number one in America is Scream 6.
Heaven help us.
Greg
it's
says,
so bad.
Long-time listener, uncertain time emergency mailer. I'd say Mark got Scream 6 wrong.
Okay.
Not if he liked it or not, of course, but the actual review. Like with Watchmen, where he reviewed the director, and the Let the Right One In remake, where he reviewed the temerity of the film for existing, the review didn't seem to make any attempt to judge the merits of the film, just to complain that a new Scream film even existed. Were there plot twists and fake-outs? Of course, it's a Scream film. Did they talk about how this sort of genre film normally plays out? Of course, it's a Scream film. Could people who are familiar with the franchise guess the killer from the clues? Of course, it's a Scream film. If you like the series and know what to expect, then it was highly entertaining. As with all the others, it did things slightly differently, but still followed the same major beats. While Mark seemed to be thrown by the twists and is this person dead or not, I doubt anyone else in the cinema who had gone to see it because it was a Scream film felt the same way.
Can I reply, or do you want to?
I'll just add another one and then
go ahead.
Griff from the Forest of Dean. First-time emergency mailer. On the subject of Scream 6, Mark mentioned in the earlier review that he liked a bit of mindless violence. So I was surprised to hear he didn't like Scream 6. It had lots of mindless violence. I found it to be the best Scream sequel in the franchise so far. It had the usual callbacks, references and meta-horror rules conversations, but what elevated this above the other sequels was some of the best put-together slasher set pieces for a number of years. The ladder, the tube, and let's not forget the opening was a brilliant subversion of expectations. I get Mark's complaints on how characters miraculously survive numerous stab wounds, but most horror requires a certain suspension of disbelief. In this case, it's the number of times you can get stabbed and still be okay. On a recent rewatch of The Exorcist, I had to turn it off because when Regan turns her neck around 360 degrees and was alive again in the next scene, well, it just wouldn't happen.
Okay, shall I do them in order?
Yeah.
The 360-degree head turn in The Exorcist has got a cutaway to Karis, so therefore the implication is it's not actually happening because, of course, if somebody's head turned around 360 degrees, it would fall off. The cutaway was the subject of much argument between Friedkin and Blatty, but it is there for precisely that point. So go back and watch the film again. Her head doesn't turn around 360 degrees. Karis thinks that he sees it. As far as The Watchmen and reviewing the director, which is Zack Snyder, well, you can think that's fine, and I disagree. I think that it's important to come to a review of a film like Watchmen understanding how it might have been done. And I don't think Zack Snyder is a talented director. I haven't liked his films for a very long time, and so it's impossible to not talk about the way that Snyder manages to do everything in terms of surface. In terms of the Scream franchise, I wasn't baffled by any of the plot twists. I just didn't care enough to understand them. I mean, it's also utterly inconsequential. The thing with the first Scream is that there is a real shock in the opening. That opening sequence in the first Scream is as brutal as anything in an Italian giallo or maybe the first Halloween. It has real shock factor. You really think, wow, that's brutal, and it gives you the sense that the rest of the film could go like that. As far as Scream 6 is concerned, nothing matters, nothing hurts, nothing's fatal, nothing's of any consequence. It's smug and self-referential. I'm glad people have enjoyed it. I kind of find it a bit difficult to sort of be told, well, look, you're no longer reviewing the film, you're reviewing everything else about it, because it's a bit like it's kind of part of film criticism. It's to do with contextualizing stuff. I mean, hey, opinions are completely personal, and I'm delighted that anyone got something out of a film that I didn't. It is impossible for me to throw away 50 years of horror film watching and just pretend that Scream 6 is fine. It's shoddy and empty in a way that the original Scream wasn't. And it is impossible not to remember how passionate Wes Craven was about Scream and Wes Craven's New Nightmare, and how much those movies and their impact meant to him, and how little it means to the people who are making them now.
Thanks very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as we enjoyed making it. While you're here, check out all the other videos because they're cool too, aren't they?
Yeah, and if you want to keep up to date with everything Kermode and Mayo's Take, then check out our social channels.
I mean, why wouldn't you?
I mean, I would. I have done.
Excellent.